dance, dance. Happy birthday, Colin. Happy birthday, Colin. Everybody say, praise Jesus. Happy birthday, Colin. In heaven. He's 11. It rhymes. In heaven. They are celebrating my son's 11th birthday. Praise Jesus. We must no longer dwell upon the past. Today, my son is celebrating his 11th birthday in heaven. 11 in heaven. Praise Jesus. Waiting for my people to get on. I was cut off. Anytime I'm praising Jesus, the enemy, because the enemy is all over the internet, cuts me off. So, hello. It's late. We'll see if anybody hops on. Wait, take a minute. Hello, I'm back. Waiting for people to get on. Hopefully they noticed I got back on because I got cut off. Because I always get cut off. You're back. I always get cut off. But, anyway, I just wanted to say real quick because I felt so distracted. It's crazy how, I know people hear the enemy and they think, you're so crazy. But the enemy will literally trick you to the point of it's like insanity. So, my mind was so scattered. But I just want to say, I already said this when the first people hopped on, but praise Jesus. Today, my son is celebrating his 11th birthday in heaven. 11 in heaven. How cool is that? Let's no longer dwell upon all the trauma and torture and pain on our past. Let's move towards the future with a smile on our face, because every single, mess turns into a message and test into a testimony. So we should be praising Jesus and be thankful and happy for everything that we've lived through. And Amanda, when I was being cut off and she was recommending a church, I didn't mean to say isn't that scary? See, I'm not sure where she's from. I think she's from around the same area. I'm assuming you're still on here, Amanda. And I'm not sure exactly, because this is just what I've heard. But I know that there are some really, really bad areas, and then there are probably some areas that are okay, So it depends where you're at, I suppose. Which is why I expressed my concern. But if she has a church that's actually, she put it in that last live to you. I don't know if you saw it, Amanda. Amber did. I would definitely start going there. I wish I had one. Because I feel like I might have to start my own. How am I going to do that? My plate's so full. And I'm not a preacher, Isn't it funny? I get on here and immediately a whole bunch of people jumped on and I was saying, praise Jesus, and they all disappeared. I used to start my lives with makeup and they would just build. My lives would just build and 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 build. And people would listen to me ramble about makeup for hours. Yeah, she sent me a message. She was, oh my gosh, I jinxed you, because she was talking about how I hadn't been cut off yet. And I told her I was going back on. I don't know if she's seen that I'm on. I don't know. Normally she hops on unless it's too late, but I think she's in your area. Because we actually did a phone conversation and we were definitely in a different time zone. So I think she lives where you do. But anyway, I just thought Why not? You know how I told you guys to start writing down just little things that God tells you. So this is a list from a long time ago. And I'm just going to read and see what is, I don't even know what I'm going into right now, but why not? I am a precious gift from God. We are all a precious gift from God. We must not take this lightly. Ever. None of us. Ever, ever, ever. Like, and that was like so pronounced. How precious we are in His eyes. Like, not just are we a precious gift from Him, we are so precious to Him. And my body is a temple of God. So, I mean, you have to try to treat your body as a temple, you know, with the Holy Spirit within you. That's what that's referenced. These are just like little notes. You know, like anytime you're feeling down or doubtful, He just reminds you the smallest yet most beautiful things. Like, I wrote down this as if I don't know this, but God told me it, so I had to write it down. My children are gifts, perfect in His creation, from God Himself, created with His own hands in my womb. And when you think about it that way, and when He said it that way, imagine yourself, I've been pregnant 5 times. That means that God literally has put His hands into our womb and created our children. How incredible is that? Just to think about, you know? Like, yeah, I mean, it talks about it in the Bible, but when you really, really comprehend that He was in there working on that baby inside of your body, that's a miracle. God is working in your life right now, whether you realize it or not. Always. Even if you're sinning, even if you're not believing, He's working in your life. And then, all of a sudden, all right, eyes wide open. Glory to God. Praise Jesus. Never let go of God. Don't lose hope. For He is with you always. Because sometimes the enemy will convince us, you're not enough, you're unworthy, blah, 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 blah. So, never lose, because He is with you always. Always, always, always. And when you get those feelings of doubt, like of letting go, or that God doesn't love you, or that He's not in your presence, in that moment, you know, make a declaration like, I belong to Jesus Christ, and I rebuke the enemy. You know what I mean? Because that's the enemy's way of getting you. And if he gets you with one small thought, that one small thought will immediately begin to spiral out of control. And another note is the news. And any kind of cable entertainment is extremely toxic. I was told this when my son died. Didn't relate it to God back then, but when my son died, I was told by all the psychiatrists and counselors, don't watch the news. So I stopped watching the news all the way back then. What's another really important one? It's not on this page, but I wanted to bring it up. Hold on, just give me a second. It'll come to me. Oh, okay. So when I lost my son, anyone who loses somebody close to them may find themselves in a place where they're trying to communicate with the dead. Okay? Amber's back! Amber, I didn't mean to, like, disrespect your area, but the area that Amanda's living in, because I've heard some like horror stories from, I don't want to say it publicly, but I think, there's probably really great areas to live in, and then really not okay places to live in. But I've heard about some really toxic things going on in that area. Do you know what I mean? And she was going through, like, struggling with some of those things herself. What was I saying before I did that? I was saying something important, Amber. I know I have to go to bed. I never sleep. What was I saying? Yes. Okay, I have done a lot of credible research, and it is not okay. It's not, I feel like you're not safe there even. Now, God will protect you, yes. I believe that is true, but I believe that you're more vulnerable there. And that makes me worry about you. Well, then you're a miracle. And I absolutely now understand fully why your kids are homeschooled. Because there's no way my kids would be in those schools. And it's funny how people are like, oh, I want to grow up and move here and move there, and they have no idea what's actually going on there. Oh, okay, that's good. I'm praying that Amanda can move. I had a powerful message that I started telling before Amanda told me to go to bed. What was it? What was I talking about? Powerful message. What was it? Give me a moment, please. Yeah, I have heard the scariest things. I mean, there are people that are still living in hiding just because of things that have happened in that area. Living in hiding with people like still looking for them. Seek, kill, and destroy. Oh, okay. So, losing loved ones. Yes, he will. I only worry about people who, like Amanda said, not everyone in her house is saved. So, everyone she's living with, not everyone, so obviously she can pray for them and rebuke the enemy. But I worry that, like, somebody in her house could potentially bring some sort of entity into her home. God will still protect them. Yes, I do believe that. There's just so much violence there right now. I mean, what was it? It was there that an elementary school kid took a knife to school, a second grader. Isn't that where that happened? Just a couple days ago? Yeah, I'm not trying to scare you at all. I just want you to make sure that you're always, never doubt, always have faith. And to know that I just care about you. That's all. And if I could pick you up and move you, I would, because then I'd feel better about it, Okay, but I think this is powerful because, and I think that this is another thing that TV and, You know, the whole brainwashing, like, shows and movies. The more things they push or the more things you don't want to listen to. Okay, so if you have a lost one, a loved one, like your mom or your dad, your son, who dies, you find yourself in this place where you're so desperate to connect. And because my son literally said goodbye to me, but like, I felt his soul leave, I felt the presence of Jesus, and then they left. But he said goodbye, Mommy, first. So I thought there was a chance I could talk to him again. And I was so desperate because, you know, there were so many things I wanted to say. So I started seeing a counselor who did like weird Reiki. I don't know what she called it. But like she would lay me on a table and tell me all this crazy stuff. She tried to tell me that my son was a very old soul with many lives, and I don't believe in any of that stuff. So, I mean, it was stupid. But what I want you to realize is, because God revealed this to me. Okay, so there are people who, whether it's ghost hunters or somebody seeking a psychic, and they say that psychics aren't psychics, like God considers that evil. You know, you're not supposed to try to communicate, because here's the truth. The truth is, my son isn't here to communicate with. My son's in heaven. So, I can't, you know, go to somebody to speak to him, because he's in heaven. He's not lingering this earth. He's in heaven. So anytime you open yourself up to talk to your mom or your dad or your grandma, you're then welcoming an evil entity that's stuck here for all the wrong reasons, because God wouldn't let them in heaven. They're lingering. And you're welcoming that into your life. So it is like so important to never, because when you're lost, especially as a mom, losing a child, seeking that kind of, seeking that isn't weird. I mean, it is weird, but that's what they do on TV, right? They have shows about it and everything. So why wouldn't we think, well, we got to go see a psychic and we got to go do this and we can talk to our son? No, that just puts you in, makes you more vulnerable, and you're literally welcoming something evil into your life. That's how God revealed it to me. You know, you can speak with him through prayer, speak with him through Jesus Christ, because he's with Jesus. You know, I always talk to Jesus, and I tell Jesus, you know, tell Colin I love him tonight, things like that. But I don't seek him here, because he's not here. And people need to understand that. Like, if you believe your lost one's in heaven, then we don't want to try to, you know, reach into the spiritual realm. And, you know, it's just like the devil is free to walk the earth, you know, and so are all these other evil entities that want nothing more than to be welcomed into somebody's body, you know. So beware. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I mean, people do desperate things in desperate measures, and bad things can happen. Bad things have happened. People have become possessed. I mean, you've seen like true stories of people being possessed. And sometimes people could become possessed because they were seeking a lost loved one. Okay. Any other notes I want to read out loud? These are just random notes I wrote. We have been cut off, lied to, distracted, manipulated, and tested by Satan. And that is so true. This whole plan is a test. Well, it's Satan's plan. But God's allowing it to happen. He hasn't ended the world yet. So we can either be like, oh, that's too crazy to believe, or accept the truth, the hard, hard truth. Because this is, I think, the biggest test of all. And we're living in the midst of it. My only fear is, I'm not worried about it happening while I'm here. But, you know, it happening when I'm not here and my kids are here, that feels a little uncomfortable. Would you agree, Amanda? Do you know what I mean, though? Like, I have faith that they will be, you know, grown up and okay if I'm dead. But at the same time, I don't like to think about that. I'd rather it happen while I'm here. Let's see. Make sure you've forgiven all of your enemies. And, like, I have forgiven every single one of them. I have no ill will upon anyone, even the ones who have hurt me the most. Forgive, forgive, forgive. And never ever, I think I put this in a post, but hardly anybody saw it. So, if you place judgment upon, okay, if I deem myself, like, okay, I struggled for a while, like, does God love me? Is he going to accept me? I messed up because, you know, I was so hurt and so lost, and, you know, does he still love me? I don't feel like I'm in his presence, blah, 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 blah. It's the enemy's way of making me think I'm not worthy. Where am I at here? This keeps happening. Why is this happening? My mind. It's happening again. Yeah, he's brain blocking me. Okay, so I've forgiven all my enemies. I know I talked about that. I have no anger or hatred towards anyone. Basically, the best thing to do and heal is to literally just let go of everything. If you let go of everything and give everything to God, you're like immediately healed. I don't know how else to put it. Because if not, you're wasting the only precious time you have. Like, okay. I'm going to show you an example. So because it's my son's birthday, back when I was so lost and broken. You're tired? Yeah, that too. So I went into the hospital to have a baby. And I left with this box. Okay? Which is horrifying. I mean, I was supposed to come home with a baby, and I came home with a box. They gave me a box. And I thought about, you know, for the other moms out there who maybe, you know, it's been 11 years for me, and I'm saved, and my eyes are wide open, and I know what I'm supposed to be thinking about versus what I'm not. So this is just reliving horrific, terrifying memories. But I wanted to bring it out just, originally my thought was to bring it out just to let other moms know you're not alone. I went to the hospital to have a baby, and I got sent home with a box. And I took this box everywhere. just like it was my baby. Because it's got all his little things in here, you know. And I thought about showing them. But, and I'm proud of him. I'm not ashamed of him. But, you know, he's in heaven with Jesus. So why dwell? I dwelled for so long. It's time to move on. And you can take that to whatever it is going on in your life, whether it's child loss or, you know, abuse, rape, being molested, anything that's awful, awful, awful that's happened in your life. We tend to cling on to the pain because, you know, that's what the enemy wants. God wants us to not be afraid. Like, when Colin died inside of me, Jesus was right there. I felt his soul come out of my belly. No, first, I said I was awoken by a thief in the night, because that's literally what happened. I had an excruciating pain. Excruciating pain. And then I felt his soul leave. And I knew that's what was happening. Without a shadow of a doubt, his soul just left my body. So then I start to go into panic. And then all of a sudden, like I said in my post, time stood still. Time stopped. I was not to be afraid. Everything was okay. There was nothing to be afraid of. I was not supposed to be sad. I was supposed to be happy. Everything was okay. He was in the best of hands. You know, and I felt all these things as like such a powerful truth in that moment. I mean, I was overwhelmed. Like, I felt his soul leave me. I felt his soul with Jesus. I felt Jesus didn't even have to talk. I could just, like, his presence was telling me these things. And then, clear as day, so I didn't hear Jesus talk. Jesus talked through his power. His presence alone talks. And he told me not to be afraid, not to be sad. Everything was going to be okay. And then I heard my son spoke, "Goodbye, Mommy." And then not too long after, the whole time literally stopped. It was like not being in this world. And then I could feel them leave. And then reality set in. You know what I mean? That's when I started screaming, "No, no, no, come back, come back, come back, come back, come back." Because that's like, you know, then you're in shock. Like, you don't want to ever accept that really just happened. But it definitely did happen. And I didn't tell anybody that for a really long time. You know, I went to the hospital. I knew my baby was dead. But I didn't say, "Oh, by the way," you know, I felt a soul leave my body. And I've heard stories of women who've had babies die in their belly and they were dead for weeks and they never knew. Yet I felt every single thing that happened, clear as day. I'm not making this up. With God as my witness, I mean, I felt it. It all happened. He said goodbye to me. Jesus told me it was going to be okay. Like, so then I wonder, how could these people live with their child die and they not even know? Maybe it's because they don't have a relationship with God. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not saved by Jesus, and then you're not going to know he's there, I guess, you know? That's the only way I can think of it. Because while I was pregnant with Colin, a guy I worked with, his daughter was pregnant, and her baby died. And by the time she had the baby, they said the baby had been dead for 2 weeks. And I was pregnant with Colin when he told me this, and I was horrified. And then throughout my pregnancy, I just had this weird, like I told you, intuition. I never had an intuition that my baby was going to die. My intuition was, this is all too good to be true. Am I ever gonna really hold my baby? This is too good to be true. In my head, it kept going over, too good to be true. This isn't really happening. And it was too good to be true. I did hold my baby, but he wasn't alive. You know what I mean? So, like, you gotta trust your instincts. God gives us them for a reason. He was preparing me for the unpreparable by letting me know, yeah, it's too good to be true. Unfortunately. It is crazy. I was also there when I was in, I think it was middle school. My grandma was living with us, and she had Alzheimer's, and she was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and it was really early in the morning, and my grandma was dying, and my mom was kind of freaking out, and she was worried because the house, you can't see the numbers on the house. So she came up and woke me up and was like, I want you to stay with Grandma while I go outside and wave down the ambulance. And so I'm standing with my grandma, and she starts to die. And I'm like, okay. You know, because Mom's like, if anything starts happening, come get me. But I knew my grandma was going to die. Do I leave her alone to die alone? Or do I stand there and, you know, like, hold her hand while she dies? So I stood there alone. I was probably in, I don't know, the 6th grade. And I didn't handle it the way I should. When she got to the point where, like, she couldn't breathe anymore. And she suffered for a couple of minutes. And I got scared because I loved her so much. So I started screaming, no, 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 Grandma, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go, please don't go, please don't go. Which, you know, I should have been like, I think back, and I should have been like, I love you, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to go. You don't have to suffer anymore. Like, I wish I would have said those things, but instead, I'm like, I love you, no, don't go. I'm a panicking child. But then she dies. And the presence again. I went from being completely like yelling, screaming, shaking, horrified. My grandma was dying before my eyes. And then I could feel her soul. And I could feel his presence. And I could feel this overwhelming, like, undescribable peace. Like, there was no sadness. There was no such thing as sadness. It was a great thing. It wasn't a bad thing. And so I was like just kind of standing there, stuck in this like alternate universe, like while my grandma's soul's leaving, and they, you know, whether it was actually Jesus or the angels, but I mean, I could feel the presence so strong and so powerful. I was no longer crying. I was no longer upset. And I very calmly then walked out to my mom and said, Mom, she just died. And then my mom starts to freak out, you know. And here I'm calm as a cucumber. But within about 5 minutes, then, like, whatever love and trance God had given me to keep me calm left. And then I, you know, start sobbing, yelling, screaming, crying, you know, and all the pain came. But there was that same feeling of, you know, and you can't deny that. You cannot deny that. It's the most powerful feeling in this world. And it's only happened to me twice. When my grandma died and when my son died. But when my son died, it was different because he was inside of me. Like, you know, he was in me, he left me. I could feel him leaving me. With my grandma, when she died, I felt like I was holding her hand and I could literally feel her, like, I could feel, like I knew she was dying, but then I could literally feel her soul was lifted from her body. Which is, I don't know how to explain that other than that's what happened. And that's truth, and that's God, you know? That's when Jesus shows up, or, you know, whichever angel he's chosen to bring you to him, you know. And in those moments, your loved ones, or, you know, whoever's there is part of the experience. I was part of the experience. And my mom kept saying, like, why didn't you come get me? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why did you wait so long? It was probably only 5 minutes. But it felt a lot longer. And I was like, because, Mom, like, Jesus was there and her soul was leaving. Like, you know, like I was trying to explain to her what happened, but, and that's when I was still calm. And then I started, you know, freaking out, and because my grandma was dead and I just saw it happen. But at the same time, like, I knew it was okay because he told me it was. Just like with my son, I knew it was okay because he told me it was. But I couldn't accept it. I wasn't willing to have enough faith to say it was meant to be, everything's okay, let go. So I finally did that. I haven't let go of him, but I've let go of making myself relive the trauma and the fear and the heartbreak, because there's, like, that's not what God wants for us. God wants us to be happy. He doesn't want us, like, all these things happen to us for a reason so that we can grow closer to him. But he doesn't want us to, you know, that's why he heals us. But you have to let him heal you. You can't resist. Stop resisting. It's my best advice. Yeah, I was little. But imagine yourself dying and the person next to you like, no, don't go. You know what I mean? And I mean, it is what it is. And I know she loved me, and I was just a kid. You know, I look back and I just think, I wish I would have handled that differently. But that was my true emotion. I loved her so much, I couldn't help it, you know. And it's just like when my son died, and Jesus told me not to be upset, and not to be afraid, and to be happy. First thing he left, I screamed and yelled and lost my mind for years, you know what I mean? Because easier said than done. It's absolutely 100% like, you can't be afraid and you can't be sad when he's right there. It's impossible. But when he leaves, then you're stuck back in this world where, you know, you're overcome with sadness and pain. See, I can't say for sure if it was Jesus. I felt so much like it was Jesus with my son. I felt like, he didn't say, I am Jesus, but it felt like Jesus to me. With my grandma, no. With my grandma, it seemed like an angel, maybe angels, or, but you know, I was just a kid. I don't know. Like, don't they assign angels to come and take you to heaven? I don't know, but circumstances could be different. You never know. My son died in my belly. That's an innocent child. It's a traumatizing thing. And I felt, I could be wrong, but I felt like it was Jesus. That was my gut instinct. With my grandma, at first I just thought it must be Jesus or God. But when I compare the two situations, they were different. But then again, like, one was coming from my body, it's my son, one was my grandma, and I could feel the presence of heaven, whatever it was from heaven, was in that room with her, and I could feel her, leave her body, and I could feel her then, then I could feel when they left, like, they hung out for a couple of minutes. It's just like I said, time stood still. The same thing happened with my son. He stayed there for a while to comfort me, and then he left. But to me, it wasn't long enough. I wanted him to stay forever. I wanted to go with them. I'm like, take me with you, please. But yeah, I mean, it's undescribable. I don't think that you're in trouble if you didn't have that experience. Were you really close? Maybe it's this. I was really young, and you know how, like, you're more spiritually open when you're young, and I told you many times that I was extremely close to God when I was a child. So close that I felt God, Jesus, whatever it was, every single day of my life. I knew He was watching me right there every day. And then, so for me to experience that, plus I was really close to my grandma. She lived with me for like 10 years. And I was really, really close to God. And then the whole experience with Colin dying, I was in such an awful place. Like, I had been raped, I was being abused by my husband, and now my son was going to die in my belly, and I was going to have to deliver a dead baby. I think that there are certain times where God, Jesus, or where Jesus decides to reveal Himself, because if not, I mean, there may be no hope. You know what I mean? Like, if He hadn't revealed Himself, I may have never recovered. Do you know what I mean? Like, because my child didn't just die. Like, I knew he was with Jesus. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just like I went to the hospital and they were like, your baby's dead. I knew when I went to the hospital that he was dead. I fought it every step of the way. And I'm like, please tell me he's alive. I kept trying to convince myself that I was in shock and I made it all up. But I knew with all of my heart and soul. And when we were driving to the hospital, I told my husband, I was too afraid to say, our son died. So instead I said, and he was working night shift, so he didn't hear me screaming, no, 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 don't go away, So when we went to the hospital, I asked him if he was afraid. He said no, and I said, well, you should be. You should be really, really, really afraid. And that's the only way that I could prepare him, because I didn't want to say it out loud. I couldn't say my baby's dead. I just couldn't do it, You hugged him and shot out of there. Wait, I was 18, close to him. I know what you mean about him leaving his body. And shot out of there. Yeah, it's really weird leading up to this spiritual awakening. I think I said something about this, but it was like maybe a month or two after Christmas. I thought I was actually going insane. Like, my PTSD had hit rock bottom. I was reliving all the horror. Like, because you have to think, I fought in court for all those years, so I, like, wasn't dealing with the pain. I was too busy fighting to save my life and my kids. And then all of a sudden, I felt all the pain of the abuse and the marriage and all the things that I'd, like, suppressed, you know? And then I felt overwhelmed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I wouldn't necessarily call it depression, but it's a lot like depression. And I felt so hopeless. I mean, I'd never felt, other than when I lost my son and was raped, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I've overcome all of this. I'm in this amazing place. I have 4 healthy, beautiful kids, and an amazing man. Why do I feel like this? And then I had this overwhelming feeling, and like I said, I'm very intuitive, that I was going to die, okay? And I had this feeling day and night. I had dreams about it every night. I didn't know how I was going to die, but I was going to die. And it got to the point where I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I didn't want to scare anybody about it. But it got to the point where it had been going on for over a month, and I was like, that's it. I have to tell Harley. I have to tell my mom. Like, I don't know what's going on, but something's going to happen. And now looking back, yeah, I did. Like, it was my rebirth. Like, because I went through all that, and it was awful. I was in the worst place I've ever been in, even throughout all of that, questioning everything that I'd ever known. And then I feel like that's when I fully, essentially died, but not physically died, and was reborn in order to properly move forward. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? I'll have to read what you said up here. I think I missed something. I'll have to read it when I'm done. I must have missed, because I got bits and pieces. So you felt like a presence hug your grandma, Amber, or maybe you weren't in the room. Maybe you weren't holding his hand or touching him. I feel like some dreams are very powerful and very true, especially if you have them back to 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 back, and you're not just having the dreams, but like it's happening during the day, like it's in your day thoughts too. But some of them can just be misleading to get you into a deeper, darker place, like nightmares. Like if you get into a depressed state, you're going to have nightmares, So, like I said, right now the world is doing nothing but shooting out, trying to make everything sheer chaos, everybody absolutely terrified, and nobody is praising people for the good that they put into the world. And people who put good into the world deserve to be appreciated. They deserve to be rewarded. They deserve to be accepted versus judged. People need to stop judging people, and people need to stop supporting bad behavior. Because even if, like, you watch it, you think, well, I'm just watching this, it's not going to affect me. It does affect you mentally. all that stuff affects you mentally. Whether or not you realize it, it's affecting your mental health. I mean, it talks about that stuff in the Bible too. It doesn't say TV, but I mean, it says like steer clear. You know what I mean? Like you have to stay away from it because it's essentially the enemy at work right in our living room. That's what it's come to. But it's getting late. I can tell you guys are tired. But anytime you need me, Amanda, you know I'm here. Today, I really wanted to sit down and have like a clear, really powerful message. But today was chaos and I cried a lot. And it just is what it is. But I felt like God still wanted me to get on live, so I did. And then I need to stop. I put too much pressure on myself. Because when you're trying to do good, there's no such thing as failing. Right? That's how I look at it. And the more hate you get, the better work you're probably doing. The more effective work you're probably doing. I mean, that's how the Bible looks at it. You know what I mean? Like, everybody called Noah crazy, Like, anybody in the Bible who had a meaning and a purpose and a message from God was labeled a nut job and unworthy and like psychotic. That's what they'd be called in our day and age, like unaccepted from society, and nobody would listen. But what I think's incredible right now is, it's not just me. I'm nobody. I'm somebody, but I don't have a huge platform, and I just started talking about these things. But there are thousands of people, uniting over this, which is the most beautiful thing, And I could have never fathomed a year ago when God said that I was going to start doing this work that I would be a part of it. So I feel extremely blessed that He chose to put me, to make me a part of this. Regardless to how controversial it is. Doesn't matter as long as you're standing for what you believe in, And I know a lot of people, because people are so righteous, especially in churches. Like, I go to churches and I feel people looking down upon me. I can feel it, and it's awful. I was talking about judgment. That's another thing that my brain went dead. Because if you judge yourself unworthy of forgiveness, if you judge yourself unworthy of God's love, if you judge yourself unworthy of the Holy Spirit or Jesus, because you're overwhelmed with guilt and all these lies that the enemy fills your head with, then like literally God will deem you unworthy because He is the one and only judge. That was another important message that I wanted to share, because that is so true. You are not to judge yourself or anybody else. So if you think that you have the right to judge yourself when He loves you and wants nothing but good for you, and you're going to sit there and say, I'm not worth it, that's a slap in His face. So He's going to say, well, you're not worth it? That's what you believe? You already judged yourself? So, do you know what I mean? So be really careful that you never, ever, ever, like I said, never take your life for granted. Never, ever, ever question your worth. and never question your appearance. Like, you know, one of the things that I wrote in one of my books is, who decides what beauty truly is? We all know who decides. Well, Instagram decides, Fashion Week, Hollywood. You know, you have to be what is in reality not real. It doesn't exist. It's either someone who's extremely tall and anorexic and like starving to death, literally, or someone who's had a tremendous amount of plastic surgery. So, you know, that's what society has decided is what's beautiful, and the perfect makeup and hair and all this stuff. But no, we, people, don't get to choose what's beautiful. God chooses what's beautiful. And once you can truly comprehend that, then you know that you are absolutely 100% not only beautiful, but flawless, because God created you to His perfection. So there's no doubt about the fact that you're beautiful. The world created an image that nobody can fit into, so that we all feel like we're ugly and worthless and helpless, and, you know, it's all part of the game. And it just makes me sad for all the little girls out there that are trying so hard to, you know, they're anorexic and it's just awful. It's awful. It's awful. I mean, and beauty gurus who start out with the cutest intentions and end up with lip injections so big that it's just like, what? And cheeks that stick out like you know, like, have you seen what's on social media? Can you imagine going to heaven and God being like, I gave you this beautiful body. What did you do to it? You know what I mean, though? Like, think about it like that. Who cares? You know? And like, because I was so into beauty there for a while, I started to worry, because when I lift my eyebrows, which happens to everyone, my forehead wrinkles. But none of the other beauty gurus have foreheads that wrinkles, and when you do your makeup, you lift your eyes so you see the wrinkling of the forehead. But all of the beauty gurus have, what's it called? They either had a facelift or they have Botox. They have Botox. So when they smile, or, you know, like, their face doesn't move. Like, their forehead never moves. And when they turn to the side, you can actually see a lump of the Botox, which essentially stretches out their skin more. And if they stop getting it, their forehead's going to sag down below their eyeballs. You know what I mean, though? And they continue to get Botox in their lips, and one day those lips are going to deflate. Imagine what they're going to look like when they're older. They're going to have, like, lips that hang below their chin, and a forehead that sags below their eyebrows. You know what I mean? Alright. Completely, I'm delirious at this point. I love you guys so much. 17 seconds. I wanted to say a prayer and I didn't get to. God bless you. I love you guys so, so, so much. Thank you for hanging out with me, Amanda. You are amazing. I love you. You're like a best friend. Love you so much. Talk to you soon.